Hello everyone, welcome to this new video showing a bit the progress of my the central section of my new layout. And there's been quite some things done since the last video, namely the completion of both Helixes. If you saw previous video, you might recall that I had to rebuild. I decided to rebuild the two Helixes I have for a larger radius because I was having derailment problems, namely with the longer locomotives with many axles. So I concluded both Helixes. I also decided to replace the insulating material by a new type. I will show you in a minute. But essentially it's it's a kind of styrofoam, it's thin, but the insulating properties, namely the sun insulating, are really good. And it's just about 2 millimeters, but it's really good. Then I also took the decision to replace all the Pico solenoid motors I had for the hidden parts of the layout turnouts, because I'm not only due to the noise when they shift, but mostly because I was having some issues. I mean, some of them didn't snap when I need it, and as you might recall, because I want to automate this section of the layout, of course, I mean, when you make automation, you must make sure that all these kind of elements, I mean, like the point motors or the turnout motors work, as well as the current sensors and the like. Otherwise, it's not going to be an automation, it's going to be an electronic nightmare. I also did some installation of the platforms of the main station. You can see it here. I will show a bit later in detail how they were built. In fact, I will prepare another video which I'll put a link in the description below of how I did these platforms. But essentially they made of styrofoam with 3D printed sidings, and then covered on the top with plaster, filling plaster. Besides this, as you might already have realized, I also installed new signals. Some of these signals I did them myself with a resin 3D printer, but I'll come later to this on a separate video, because it's a very interesting activity, all this capability that the 3D printer gives us, especially the resin one for the details, to make your own signals and the likes, or any details you want. I also installed decoders for the servos, and for this particular application I used a brand that is called Arcomora. You guys probably heard about it already, but these are very flexible, very price competitive, and with a great service. I'll put a link down to Arcomora, the site and the product. It's developed by Nico Teering, and I really advise you to go there and check all the products he has developed. So here, in the previous take, we were seeing this Helix, and now we are looking at Helix, at the West Helix, sorry. And here we have another view angle of the main station area. Okay, I will just zoom in. You can see it. So I just placed there what will be the main building of the station, just to get a notion perspective. Okay. In here you can see as well some rolling stock. This is one of the decoders I'm using in my layout. These are designed and produced by Nico Teering under the brand Arcomora. In this case, this is the model DCCNEXT, which for this particular case is configured as a servo decoder, but it can be under different configuration regarding, the hardware outputs, and of course as well the software configuration or parameter configuration be used as well for signaling. I have no affiliation or any, let's say, commercial interest whatsoever with Arcomora. Just decided to show you guys this because it's a very good decoder. It's very flexible. It's easy to configure, and it's a very economical solution. You can get it as a kit, as I did, and then of course you have to solder all the components yourself. But if you are not inclined or you cannot do it, then okay, you can get it as well as a complete unit, including even as an optional case to protect it from any accidental bumps or dust intrusion. In my case, I decided not to use the box because all of this part will be covered with the fascia later on, and this should prevent some accidental bumps or dust. This other circuit on the left side is something I just quickly put up to provide 5 volts DC for the servos. So basically I get the power supply here of 16, in my case 16 volts AC, which is connected in parallel to the power input of the DCCNEXT decoder, and then this through this circuit it's then converted, as I mentioned, to the 5 volt DC. And this is important because the decoder itself is not able to provide enough power for the servos, and as you can imagine by the sizable dimension of this heatsink, they really use some power. I tried with a much smaller heatsink, but then after a while I got the voltage regulator starting to be too hot for my taste, let's say. So I changed for a bigger heatsink. So as I mentioned, it's a very interesting solution if you guys are looking for a flexible and economical solution. You can get much more information obviously from Arcomora site, for which I'll put a link in this video's description. So as a small note on the platforms, as I mentioned earlier in this video, I made this of styrofoam. It was not exactly this styrofoam, but it was a very similar one. I have to tell that I got some inspiration from a site that I guess most of you know very well, and if you don't know, I advise you to go there, which is Marklinofsweden. It's a really fantastic site. You can find there a lot of tutorial videos, and it's very fun to watch as well. So I'll put a link to the description of this video below. So this is made of styrofoam, which I cut to width, and as I will show in a separate video, I use a styrofoam cutter to slice this, to cut this to the exact height I need, and then instead of making them, I could make the sidings out of balsa or plastic like evergreen, but instead I decided to design them and make them in my 3D printer. They didn't get perfect, but okay, for this distance they are good enough, and after weather they will just be perfect. So after gluing the the platform in place, I just glue these. Of course, you have to realize that this will be the correct height. So I glue these, all of these, and typically I cut this, leaving 1 to 2 millimeters below the platform, so that I can use this plaster joint filler or crack wall crack filler on top of it to give this nice texture. After which I apply then with an airbrush, I apply a primer. I mean, typically I use gray, and then I apply the color I want. In this case, is this kind of cement gray on top of it, as many layers I feel like. And in this particular case, I left as it is. If you realize here, the color is not that uniform. Okay, I'll try. You see there are some nuances here, and I left them on purpose in order to give, let's say, a more realistic base for then the weathering phase it's going to follow, where I'm going to use some washes and pigments and all that. But that will be on a much later stage, after I have all the the signaling and the catenary poles, which in principle will be fixed here on this platform and on the other side. So I hope you had a nice view of my layout progress. The next steps now will be wiring all and testing all these signals to see if they operate properly. Of course, combined as well with the automation system I have installed. And then after that, I'll move to the scenario. But before, in between, I'll have to test something, let's say, scenery wise. I mean, because if you notice here, this distance might seems a bit short. So I will try to, when building here the scenery, or eventually with some rocks or stone walls, to see if I can get away with it. Otherwise, I will have to put here an additional 1 or 2 centimeters and move all this parade wood a bit forward. Well, that's the fun part of the hobby, do this kind of changes when you are at it, because no matter how well you plan things on let's say on the drawing board, well, in this case on the software, on the planning software, it's only when you start to put things, installing things and put things on the ground, let's say, that you realize that things on the paper or on the computer screen are not, let's say, exact reality, right? But of course, that extension is much preferable than moving everything 1 or 2 centimeters in that direction, which then would bring another problem, which would be the connection with the helices. That would become a bit too tight, and I don't want to have that much fun, moving everything backwards. So I hope you enjoyed it. I mean, if you guys want to have something more explained in detail, or some aspect you want to see, as I mentioned in the video, in this video, I'll make a couple of separate videos. One for the platforms, more in detail, and another one describing the whole process of designing the signals, printing them in the 3D printer, painting and putting all the LEDs, wires, etc. On a future date. I don't know yet when I'm going to do that, but it's in the plans to do it. Okay, so guys, I hope you enjoyed and thanks for watching. Cheers.